The story unfolds under the scorching sun of a barren desert where a fierce battle is taking place. The protagonist, a lone warrior with disheveled hair, is facing a massive encirclement of enemies and gigantic monsters. The battle is incredibly brutal. Despite his body being riddled with wounds, the warrior decisively swings his sword, striking down one enemy after another. His valor and brutality terrify the enemy soldiers, who exclaim, calling him a monster bastard. However, after a series of fatal blows, his strength gradually runs out. Realizing their prey is exhausted, the enemy commander orders his soldiers to charge simultaneously to finish him off. In that life and death moment, despite his inner turmoil, screaming that his heart is about to burst and every breath hurts like a knife cutting his throat, the warrior still does not fall. On the fragile boundary between life and death, he can no longer distinguish whether the liquid dripping from his head is blood or sweat. Instead of giving up, he flashes a defiant smile, grips his weapon tightly, ready to face the enemy's next torrential attack alone. The life or death battle was, in fact, just events within a virtual world. In the final moments, a series of system notifications pop up, signaling the activation of powerful hidden skills. However, the effort is not enough. The in-game character is overwhelmed by the enemy and collapses with a desperate scream. The cold words "game over" appear on the screen, pulling the viewer back to the harsh reality. The person who controlled that valiant warrior is actually a young man with a slovenly appearance and a scruffy beard, sitting in a dark room filled with empty soda cans and instant noodle containers. Slumping back in his chair in frustration, he grumbles about the absurd difficulty of this trash game. But after the momentary irritation comes a bitter silence as he reflects on his own life. He admits that he quit his job a few months ago and is now living as a recluse, like a game addict. The young man bitterly acknowledges that he has wasted 5 long years on a single game title. That game is named Pangenia. Released 5 years ago, Pangenia once caused a sensation with the developer's tempting declaration, "If you complete the game, you will be granted one wish." However, it was merely a delicious bait to lure the curious into their doom. The game's difficulty was so unreasonably brutal that all players failed and gave up. Currently, he is the only remaining player on the server. If he logs out, the number of online players will be a complete zero. Pangenia's madness lies in its inhumane challenges bosses, so powerful that players wonder if they are truly designed to be defeated. NPC teammates are ready to betray and stab the player in the back without any warning. Invincible named NPCs will hunt players down relentlessly if a bounty is placed on them. But the true nightmare lies in the most brutal punishment mechanism: permanent death. If the character dies, all data, equipment, and accumulated effort vanish instantly. The player is forced to start again from absolute zero. That is the harsh reality of the game he has stubbornly clung to for the past 5 years. Following the sudden death of the character he had dedicated 5 years to, the secret mechanism of the Pangenia game is gradually revealed. It is a soul point, SP, system. When a character dies, based on their value and achievements, the player receives an amount of SP to invest in the talent stats for a new character. The more SP invested, the easier it is for the next generation character to develop strength. A notification states that he has received 1,600,000 SP. This number is an unbelievable absurdity, as the hundreds of his previously deceased characters combined only managed to earn a mere 80,000 SP. The reason for this astronomical figure is that his recently deceased character possessed unique items, having equipped 8 out of the 15 unique items in the game world. With an investment limit of only 10,000 SP for each talent type, the 1.6 million SP means he no longer has to choose. He can maximize all stats. With 1.6 million SP in hand, Hyunmyoung decides not to follow the safe path of upgrading magic as he always did. He smiles with resignation mixed with determination, telling himself that since he can't complete the game anyway, this will be the last time he plays his best to fully enjoy it before deleting the game permanently. The moment his finger presses the confirmation button, painful memories of reality flood back, explaining his current recklessness. In the flashback, Hyunmyoung is sitting at a cafe, across from his girlfriend. She coldly breaks up with him for a reason that is both practical and cruel. She's reached the age to think about marriage, yet Hyunmyoung has nothing to his name. While her friends are all dating successful men working at large corporations, the statement, "I can't keep dating a man with no future," cuts into his self-respect like a knife. The girl leaves, abandoning Hyunmyoung sitting with his head bowed, isolated and ashamed in the middle of the cafe. 3 months ago, his 5-year relationship ended bitterly. The shock of being dumped led him to angrily quit his dead-end job, confining himself within 4 walls, and becoming a game addict to escape reality. Back in the present, having had enough of this wretchedness, Hyunmyoung resolutely presses the random button for the system to automatically distribute the 1.6 million SP. However, the unimaginable happens. Instead of just adding stat points, the screen repeatedly flashes the phrase consuming 100 SP for restructuring. Suddenly, a strange notification appears. Hidden fragment activated. Hyunmyoung is stunned by the message, unprecedented in the game's history. Congratulations. You have satisfied the singularity requirement and are invited to Pangenia. While he is still wondering, a surge of blue digital energy erupts, engulfing the room. Hyunmyoung is utterly horrified to realize his body is being fragmented and sucked directly into the computer screen. The process of space transference is accompanied by excruciating pain. In Hyunmyoung's mind, a voice filled with resentment curses an evil god, wishing every world the god created would burn to ashes. Before his consciousness fades, a sarcastic message appears, wishing him to find happiness in Pangenia. Upon waking, the first sensation is not joy, but agonizing pain. A ferocious warden is lashing him with a whip, berating him as a useless slave and forcing him to stand up immediately. Hyunmyoung is shocked to find himself among a ragged group of people, their hands bound by heavy chains. The warden shouts a threat. If you fall again, I'll throw you to the High Dragon. The familiar name High Dragon stuns Hyunmyoung. He looks up and is utterly terrified to see the gigantic dragon heads of the monster lumbering right next to the column of prisoners. At this moment, he truly understands his situation. He has been transported into the game, but not as a hero. His start is as a wretched slave, his life hanging by a thread. After being cruelly lashed by the warden, Hyunmyoung stumbles up and realizes this desolate scene looks very familiar. To verify his suspicion, he calls out the familiar gamer command, status window. Immediately, a blue three-dimensional screen appears before his eyes, confirming the insane truth that he has indeed entered the world of Pangenia. But what astonishes him even more are his character stats after using 1.6 million SP for random distribution. Instead of focusing on one stat, as in conventional gameplay, all basic stats, strength, vitality, agility, intelligence, mana, all stop at the number 12. This is extremely illogical, as the starting limit is typically only from 1 to 10 depending on the SP investment. The biggest shock is in the skill list. Hyunmyoung possesses up to 13 active hidden skills simultaneously. These are super rare and powerful skills such as Void, Weapon Master, Giant's Magic Resistance, Druid's Beloved Daughter, Iron, Blooded Tyrant's Heart, Beast Lord, Grand Sage, Heavenly Mandate. Before he can fully process the game-breaking power he has just acquired, Hyunmyoung is interrupted by the panic of the surrounding slaves. It appears another dangerous incident is imminent. The real nightmare begins when the slave camp is unexpectedly attacked. Piercing screams announce the arrival of the Desert Queen's army, those who have broken the peace treaty. Amidst the chaos, Hyunmyoung sees a formidable female warrior standing atop the High Dragon monster. His 5 years of grinding help him immediately recognize this dangerous character, the Serpent Princess. Right then, the system issues the first chilling quest. Main Quest 1. Survive. The failure condition is permanent death for both the in-game and real-life body. An arrow shower begins to pour down like a torrent, indiscriminately slaughtering both the guards and the panicked, fleeing slaves. On the thin line between life and death, as fear takes over, Hyunmyoung's superhuman body begins to react. The first hidden skill out of the 13 is automatically activated. Iron-Blooded Tyrant's Heart. This is a linked skill that only appears when all physical talents reach maximum level. It grants the owner tireless endurance, minimizes the chance of being ambushed, and most importantly, the ability to instantly grasp the battle situation. While others collapse in despair, Hyunmyoung's mind suddenly becomes extraordinarily sharp, ready for the struggle for survival. Clearly aware that standing still amid the storm of arrows and bullets means death, he immediately lunges forward and quickly grabs the sword from the corpse of a fallen person. The moment his fingers touch the hilt of the sword, a new surge of power erupts within his body. Thanks to the combination of his incredibly high basic stats and master-level skills, he swings the sword in a skillful counterattack. A soldier from the Desert Queen's army rushes in to finish him off, but he doesn't expect that the previously weak prey has completely transformed. The lightning-fast sword strike, enveloped in an emerald green energy, tears through the air and instantly slays the enemy. Hyunmyoung now stands tall in the posture of a war god, ready to massacre anyone who stands in his way. As soon as he strikes down the enemy, a system notification rings out. Is less than hidden skill Weapon Master has been activated is greater than. The moment the Weapon Master skill activated, a horde of enemies charged. Hyunmyoung immediately felt a distinct change in every muscle fiber. Facing the large, bald-headed enemy, who was screaming madly and calling him a wretched slave, Hyunmyoung didn't flinch, moving his feet nimbly to dodge the sharp, incoming weapons. His weapon sliced the bald man's weapon clean in half, and the enemy's body stumbled and cried out in pain. Even though this was his first time wielding this type of weapon, His body reacted perfectly, as if he had practiced for 1,000 years. Seizing the chance, Hyunmyoung launched a decisive spear thrust, its sheer force piercing the enemy's defense. Other squads of soldiers rushed forward in turn. The hidden skill not only granted strength in weapon usage but also completely altered Hyunmyoung's worldview. Before his eyes, the trajectories of attacks and the path of every weapon suddenly appeared clearly as mesmerizing blue phantoms. Every enemy strike was easily parried. Every enemy's weakness was exposed before the eye of a battle master. Hyunmyoung didn't hesitate to snatch up a war axe. Facing the next soldier, he effortlessly blocked the strike and delivered a fatal, lightning-fast blow, to which the opponent only managed to stammer, "Wait." Amidst the fierce battlefield, the sight of the ragged slave, standing resolute with weapons in both hands and a gaze blazing with murderous intent, made the enemy forces waver. The guards gasped in shock, blurting out, "Monster!" They couldn't believe that a group of slaves, supposedly exhausted from their injuries, could produce such a ferocious and overwhelming fighter. The system once again astonished Hyunmyoung. A message appeared, showing that thanks to the effect of the hidden skill Artisan's Hand, his weapon proficiency was increasing at an absurd rate. In mere moments, his sword and spear skills hit level 6 out of 10. Hyunmyoung wondered if this was truly the power of a hidden skill, given that level 6 was already enough to rival a famed knight. However, that sudden spike in power could not mask the despair of reality. Although he had held out this long thanks to the miracle of the hidden stats, he knew he couldn't last forever. Before him was still a sea of at least 500 soldiers, all brandishing their weapons. Concurrently, the scene shifted to a dark, red-hued palace in the desert city of Faisalmer. A powerful woman sat upon a throne, questioning her subordinate about the failure of the expedition to the demon world. The person kneeling on the red carpet was the Serpent Princess. Fearing that Faisalmer's non-participation in the expedition would lead to blame and punishment from the central continent, the one on the throne made a ruthless decision to cover her tracks. She coldly commanded the Serpent Princess to proceed to the Kultzman Desert with a single order: slaughter all survivors and remnants of the exploration party. It turned out that the frantic attack Hyunmyoung was enduring was this brutal cleanup operation ordered from the shadows. From atop a gigantic monster, the Serpent Princess coldly observed the battlefield below to oversee the massacre. However, her eyes suddenly showed surprise mixed with curiosity upon seeing a solitary figure still holding firm amidst the sea of stacked corpses. On the ground, Hyunmyoung was now panting, drenched in sweat, his body seemingly having reached the absolute limit of endurance after taking down yet another enemy. But at that very moment of utter exhaustion, the characteristic magic of the game world appeared to save him. The crisp ting sound of the system rang out. "Your level has increased, LV2. Accompanying the level up was a full recovery mechanism. Health and mana have been restored, fatigue has been cleared. As if injected with new vitality, Hyunmyoung shed his exhaustion, standing tall and mighty with full strength, ready for the next round of combat. His bizarre revival and overwhelming momentum stunned the enemy soldiers, simultaneously forcing the Serpent Princess to act personally, much to the astonishment of her own troops. The moment he saw her, Hyunmyoung's observation skill immediately activated. A status window appeared, warning of extreme danger. Level 8. This number felt like a splash of cold water in his face. In the world of Pangenia, the maximum level was 10, and level 7 was already the dividing line for truly powerful individuals. From level 8 upward, they were considered monsters leading major organizations, possessing power that no mere mortal could ever bridge. Hyunmyoung knew better than anyone that, given his current level, defeating her was completely impossible. However, in the midst of his despair, his eyes suddenly fixated on a strange line in the opponent's status window. She cannot leave this area due to the influence of the Desert Queen's curse. But Isabella gave him no time to ponder. She stepped forward with a frigid expression, offering a sarcastic compliment on his recent performance. Immediately after, a ferocious killing intent erupted, and a giant snake entity with glowing red eyes materialized behind her, enveloping the space in a deadly blue hue. The death sentence was delivered, short and cold. "Now you must die." Instead of trembling at the imminent death, Hyunmyoung's mind became unusually calm. Memories of his all-night gaming grinds flooded back. He considered himself a pervert among gamers, one who always found a way to beat any game, no matter how absurdly difficult or cruel. Facing Isabella's lightning-fast attack, he gambled his life by standing perfectly still, making no attempt to dodge. He flashed a confident smile and uttered a question that struck his opponent's greatest vulnerability. "Don't you want to break the Queen's curse?" His gamble paid off. Isabella's razor-sharp blade suddenly halted, a hair's breadth from his throat. The statement stunned Isabella. Her eyes widened in shock, and the intense killing intent from moments ago was instantly extinguished. When she pressed him for his identity, Hyunmyoung didn't hesitate to fabricate a mysterious and authoritative title to conceal his slave status. "I am the Star Guide. I read the stars and guide humanity," he concluded with an irresistible offer. He would help her break the curse and escape this confining desert region. Hyunmyoung's deception was a resounding success. The body of the famed level 8 assassin began to tremble, not from fear, but from the sheer excitement of hearing a chance to escape the cage that had trapped her for years. Hyunmyoung admitted in his thoughts that the Star Guide was a special NPC class that helped players break through level limits, and of course, he wasn't one. But he knew exactly that the cure for this curse required the blessing of the stars, and the reason he knew that was because Isabella was not a random boss, but a character he had created and played in the past. However, having chosen the wrong starting point, he had abandoned this character to start over. The Queen's Curse was actually a game mechanic used to restrict players from leaving the beginner map during the initial phase. Isabella was meant to explore the world, to go to the end of the game like a free bird soaring across the sky. But having been abandoned by the player, she was permanently stuck in this desert cage by that barrier mechanism. Isabella sheathed her twin daggers and coldly walked past Hyunmyoung. She accepted the compromise. However, before leaving, she left a bone-chilling threat, affirming she would tear him to shreds if he dared to deceive her. After his miraculous bluff to save his life, Hyunmyoung finally collapsed to the ground from exhaustion. This time, however, he was no longer the trampled slave. Isabella had ordered the soldiers to escort him as a special guest who required careful attention. While his consciousness was hazy, a torrent of system notifications appeared, signaling an unprecedented shower of rewards. The main quest survival was complete. Not only that, thanks to his miraculously perfect performance, he had broken a record and gained the attention of the constellations. The rewards were continuously upgraded, from newbie's luck to the recognition of the constellation of battle. He received items such as fragments of the Golden Scale, Soul of the Hydreigon, and Mishala's Sword. Furthermore, the result for this quest was a total score of 220, and his name would be added to the Hall of Fame for main quests. That evening, at the Serpent Princess's castle, when he awoke and relaxed in a luxurious bath, Hyunmyoung checked his spoils in astonishment. He couldn't believe his eyes, possessing 3 legendary items at once. Soul of the Hydreigon, an ultra-rare item that had only dropped once in the game's history. Miquella's Sword, the must-have weapon for the early game phase. Fragments of the Golden Scale. This was what baffled him most. Its description mentioned the ability to synchronize reality and Pangenia and allowed access to the Golden Scale shop. The concept of reality synchronization utterly confused Hyunmyoung. Before he could think further, the bathroom door swung open, and 3 maids unexpectedly rushed in, startling him. Hyunmyoung quickly realized that the arrival of the 3 beautiful maids was not mere attentive service but a subtle psychological test from Isabella. By this world's logic, someone with a lofty mission like the Star Guide must be a saint, unmoved by common carnal desires. Thus, Hyunmyoung had to force himself to maintain an internal calm, suppressing every natural reaction of an ordinary man being touched by the women. Just to protect his false facade of sanctity, he coldly ordered them to just wash his feet to maintain distance. But the intimate visuals made him sweat profusely. However, the real shock was not the beauty trap trial, but the system messages that had just popped up. A terrifying stat appeared: collapse progress, 7.66%. The system warned that as the boundary between the game world and reality was broken, the 2 worlds would begin to synchronize. If this number exceeded 10%, the first rift would appear, signaling a disaster for both worlds. The most insane thing happened. By ranking on the survival quest leaderboard, Hyunmyoung had unlocked the feature every trapped gamer longed for: log out. However, it came with a critical warning. Your character will become extremely weak and unprotected while you are logged out. Shock followed shock as he looked at the Hall of Honor leaderboard. They were his former comrades, the ones he thought had long quit the game. It turned out they hadn't quit at all, but had been summoned to this world just like him. However, the fear of being eternally trapped in this hellish game was greater than everything else. Not allowing himself another second of hesitation, Hyunmyoung frantically pressed the logout button with the sole thought of escaping this cursed place immediately. The system announced, "Logout complete," bringing him back to his familiar room with the computer screen still lit. Yet, the nascent relief instantly vanished. When Hyunmyoung looked out the window, what greeted him was not the peaceful scene of the real world, but a ruined city engulfed in fire and destruction. The warning about the collapse of the boundary between reality and Pangenia had come true, turning his real world into another living hell. His phone vibrated violently. Emergency messages pulsed non-stop. But what he saw stunned him even more. Monsters from Pangenia had crossed the boundary and appeared right in reality. They roared and charged to attack. He panicked, backed up, and stumbled to the floor. Amidst that chaos and despair, a yellow, curved object fell out of his clothes.